So let's talk about commodities. It's connected to everything in the world.
What are we, 70% water? There's water, you'll need ships. Everything is a derivative of crude oil.
People often have this misconception that green energy doesn't require the old types of energy sources.
It does. Even these ships that are carrying maybe 300 EV cars, what do you think they're running on? Love.
So a tokenized commodity like gold would enable investors to receive income at different points in time depending on how you program the smart contracts on the blockchain.
I'm going to tokenize my gold, and let's just say this gold makes 10 grand a year. I'm willing to tokenize it so I can receive the money now. I still own the gold, but you can then profit from the rising price of that gold as well.
Okay, let's go.
So let's talk about commodities. You mentioned about how commodities is now, something that you can learn so much about versus, say, hedge funds, but also that it opens so many doors. It's connected to everything in the world.
Everything. I mean, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
What are we, 70% water, the planet, or something like that?
Yeah, water.
So as long as there's water, you'll need ships.
Yeah.
And on that ships carries every kind of commodity you can think of to transport around the world. So for me, everything is a derivative of crude oil. Right? You pull it out the ground, you stick it on a ship to deliver it to a storage unit or to a refinery, and it goes through the refinery and it comes out, whether it's jet fuel, gasoline, this, that, and the other, and it gets delivered to a customer. But that's just on the oil side of it. Then the other side of commodities, you've got grain, soya beans, wheat. You've got the agricultural side of it. So it touches every element of a human. So for me, I was enormously interested in it because, again, it was something new. I'd never done it before, and I didn't know how it worked. But it was a massive culture shock when I walked into like a
Glencore.
commodity. Yeah, massive. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be the way.
Tell me more. When you said massive culture shock, you mean culture shock in terms of the knowledge that you had to pick up, or
the knowledge I had to pick up was a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
But for me, I just needed to follow the the data flows. Okay, from execution, where the data goes into the system, who the derivative of that data is, but then really understanding how the products worked and why the products worked.
Yeah. Because your role was on business change.
Yeah, so when I left the hedge fund space, I was at the point of, okay, I want to be a COO of something, okay, because I had an ops background, I had a tech background, and I made operating processes and procedures, and I was very happy with this.
Right.
I wasn't really interested in trading. This is much more interesting to me, how it all fixes together. So I thought, okay, next step for me, calculative decision, I'm going to be a COO of a hedge fund or whatnot. But then Glencore was there, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to be COO of Glencore because I know nothing about oil. And I remember the CFO of the oil division at the time said to me, look, just have a look at our treasury department and whatnot. Let me know what you think. So, started working with him, and, he sort of liked me. And then I met the CIO of the tech division at the time, and he was ex-BP guy. And I started talking to him about a utopia scenario of how I think oil operations should work, because oil operations is very manual.
Without knowing anything about oil.
Well, so from a paper world like bond and equities, everything happens electronically.
Yeah,
it's all on a screen. But here, I physically buy something from you, like oil.
Yeah.
So I send you a recap of exactly what I bought from you. You send me a recap of what I sold you.
Right.
Then it goes to my guys, and they say, hey, did you buy this? Yeah, I put it in a system. Then they reconcile it here. Then your side reconciles it. Then the contract comes in, and it's just like the pieces of information go from here, stack goes here. It's all paper. And that's what surprised me about the whole commodities industry. I thought, geez, gosh, it's so paper orientated.
Interesting, yeah.
There's recaps, there's contracts, there's an invoice. That's something that blew my mind. I thought, invoice? Wow, have I just hired a plumber or something? I've never seen an invoice.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's that's really interesting.
That's what you meant by culture shock, because it's so vastly different from the equities and
It's
bonds
vastly,
market.
I mean, look, internally, it was a culture shock. So I didn't think it was that archaic in terms of processes and systems.
Interesting, yeah.
But externally, it shocked me because I didn't realize how powerful and how important these commodity traders are, and how, some of them were like the largest companies you've never heard of. When Glencore floated, there was this headline that says, the largest company in the world you've never heard of. And it really sort of made me think, you know what? After working here, I realized what a juggernaut of a place it was. Very successful, amazing traders,
Yeah.
great leadership, great CEO, CFO, whatnot.
Yeah.
It was just a very impressive, well-run machine externally. Internally, it had its challenges, but everything still worked.
Right.
How you could run a mega billion-dollar business like that and it still operated.
I get it.
And that was what was very interesting about it. And then obviously I started to understand the reputation of Glencore, then obviously its rivals and the place it has in the market and how respected it was. And I thought, wow, I've landed somewhere amazing.
After Glencore, you moved to Gunvor.
Yeah, that completely changed everything in my life. In fact, I moved to Gunvor for various reasons. One,
and not many people know about Gunvor.
yes.
Tell us, like, Gunvor is one of the largest independent commodity trading houses.
At the time, it was the fourth largest privately owned commodity trading company in the world. And Gunvor had a reputation in the market as being very entrepreneurial, very up and coming. I mean, it was quite established anyway. I focused on, building out operations, taking an old archaic system and building it and make it sustainable. And I was there for many years and I absolutely loved it. During that period, I started to meet my counterparts at other trading companies. And then we started, sharing issues with, inefficiencies, not within our company, but how our industry works.
Yeah.
And, we should find a solution one day to fix these problems. And
what sort of problems were these?
Sort of like technical problems. In terms of systems, the way the market works, we all had operating systems and ETRMs. So where we book the trade, where we register the trade, where we do the cash management, where we do the contracts, the invoicing and whatnot. This information, we're swapping between each other.
Right. Okay?
As I was saying before, the contract, the invoicing,
a lot of
the
people
logistics, the financing and whatnot. To execute a trade, get it confirmed, get it financed, get it delivered, sometimes took 30, 60 days. Right?
Wow, that's really long.
Yeah. The systems were built because of the inaccuracies from the market.
Right.
The market was so dysfunctional and whatnot, so we had to build to navigate that.
Right.
So, we all used to meet at various conferences, and then one guy from another trading company said to me, you know what? You spend X amount on your system. She spends X amount on her system, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't it be great if there was just like one system that we all used? And I said, yeah, you know what? We should build our own system. Why don't we all pour some money into it and we do it? That phased out. Didn't see him for a while. Then he came back to me and said, listen, I've got some people together. I've had an idea. Why don't we build a company where we can build our own technology on blockchain? That became fact. But obviously that was a bit of a hard sell. Internally at Gunvor and various other trading houses. You're talking to me about blockchain. Blockchain, isn't that crypto? Crypto's dangerous, isn't it? And this is 215, right?
Yeah.
Bitcoin is going up and down So before I knew it, we assembled an Avengers team in the commodities market of some of the biggest names in the industry. And we all got together and said, let's do this. Let's build the first blockchain solution for the oil industry post-trade.
Why did you leave that and then want to do your own thing?
I left Gunvor in 2021, which means I also left the board of VACT. And I thought, okay, I think this is what I'm meant to do.
Okay.
I think finally I'm meant to start my own business, where I've worked for big businesses.
Yeah.
I've scaled down to learn the model, a completely changed industry.
Yeah.
again, understood the model,
Yeah.
then took a derivative of that business and in terms of technology went to fact.
Yeah.
Was still working at Gunvor, and I thought, okay, how do I marry commodities, trading, and blockchain together? Commodities market is very sort of geopolitically driven.
Yes.
It's a lot more volatile,
Yeah.
and it can be affected by a new administration.
Yeah.
It can be affected by weather.
Yes.
It
Currencies.
Currencies.
Yeah.
War.
Yeah.
Pandemics.
Mm-hmm.
Can be affected by so many elements
Right.
that it's really, really complicated.
Yes.
And money flows. Every time there's a new administration, the bond market is affected, the equity market is affected. And obviously, with where we are today economically, I think the commodities market will go on an enormous rally. Not yet. I think we're still in a bit of stabilization. I think with the US at the moment, where they want to start drilling, they want to start having, their own. I think they're reactivating more coal mines and metal mines.
Right.
I think there's some activity within the commodity space, which I now think has validation for tokenization.
You mentioned that, commodities may also be, starting a new cycle. How much of that is structurally driven in terms of the asset class?
Well, I mean, the big commodity traders at the moment, they have very long-standing, respected relationship with banks in terms of financing. And there are small commodity traders, ship owners, refineries or whatnot, that banks are shying away from to finance. So these are assets that are enormously valuable. Now, when I look at blockchain technology and understanding what a lot of these crypto projects, okay, I'm going to call them digital assets, but these are disruptive technologies. And when I look at new technologies and I look at my industry, I think about how can I leverage these? How can I solve the problem of transparency, liquidity, and securing assets? But most importantly, how can I expose normal people to have access to a commodities industry, which is historically been out of reach?
Yeah, I was about to say that all those things you mentioned, solving for transparency, liquidity, are all the things that are holding investors back from investing in this asset class in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, look, the average family office, which I work with a couple of them, they're sitting on like properties, they own an office building or whatnot, but also they own a commodity of gold.
Yes.
They
gold
buy
bars.
these little gold bars and they keep it in
the vault.
In the vault in whatever great institution, whether it's DBS or UOB or whatever. But that's as near as they get to a commodity.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, well, here's an oil storage facility, here's a refinery, here's a commodity trading company that need liquidity. Here are some investors that would love to own a piece of an oil industry or a power station or a ship.
Right. Yeah.
How can I connect them? How can I make that accessible? And the only way to really do that is to tokenize these assets. No different from sort of a few of you getting together to putting a deposit together to buy a house.
Yeah.
Okay. All we're really doing is breaking up that property into various small pieces, whether it's $1 or $100 or $1,000, and you're allowed to earn a little bit. So if that property makes money, you make money.
Yeah.
And you can get paid your yield daily, weekly, monthly, or whatnot.
If I'm an investor and I normally invest in commodities through, let's say, a gold ETF, right?
Yeah.
Or buying gold bars and putting in a vault. Why should I buy a piece of a power station or a oil barrel?
Look, the reason I advocate the commodities and energy sector is because of the way society is operating in terms of data and knowledge. And more people are using AI than ever. It's aggressively, it's like an AI pandemic, right? It's everywhere. See, With Google, it will tell you where to find that information.
Yeah.
Right? With ChatGPT, it tells you the information.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the power source that goes into that.
Mm-hmm.
Then obviously the shift away from gasoline to EV, which is never really fully going to happen.
Yeah.
Because look, EVs are great, good for the environment, but in order to get something to be clean, something else needs to be dirty.
Yeah,
right?
you need more energy.
There's more money in dirty than there is clean.
Right.
And
people, I mean, just I know we might digress a bit, but people often have this misconception that green energy doesn't require the old types of energy sources.
It does. Coal, crude is they're all derivatives of clean. That you'll need them at some point. Even these ships that are carrying a ton of maybe 300 EV cars.
Yeah.
What do you think they're running on? Love. Fuel oil, right?
Yeah.
How'd you get fuel oil? You get it from crude. How'd you get crude? You've got to drill into the ground and get it. So everything, from this mic, from the lights, everything is a derivative of that. So, but, I'm not going to start campaigning on, green energy and whatnot. I think it's important.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to understand that, there is another side to it.
Yeah, exactly. No, the point I was trying to make is how there is always a place for a lot of these commodities. And I was trying to understand from the perspective of the investor as well, why you, what are the benefits of so-called, investing in a tokenized part of a...
Well, look, these companies make a lot of money, right? And obviously it's known that a lot of these commodity traders or asset owners, there is also a big difference.
Yeah.
That they make a huge amount of profit.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can't get financing.
Yeah.
Okay, so they look for alternative financing. If you tokenize that, it's a structured smart contract, written on the contract, know exactly who's got what, and the payments on it and the dividends can happen very, very quickly.
Yeah. If I used gold as a use case for tokenizing a commodity, what would it mean for a gold trader and a gold investor? What benefits would they each see when they have this tokenized gold? Okay.
Let's just say you have gold at home, right? And you know that your gold, say last year, gold went up 30%, okay?
Yeah.
So when you hold gold, you never really know how much you're going to make on it every year.
Yeah.
Roughly, you're going to make maybe like 6 to 12% a year on your gold. Now, you never want to sell that asset because it's gold. Right? But you'd love to have some of the money that it releases, right?
Yes.
So if I tokenize that, right, and just say, okay, look, I'm going to tokenize my gold, Nicole, right?
Yeah.
And let's just say this gold makes 10 grand a year, right? I'm willing to tokenize it, right? So I can receive the money now, and you also
still
can
hold
earn. I still own the gold, but you can then profit from the rising price of that gold as well,
right?
If you give me some of the money now, in the same way that if I get a lot of receivable invoices, that mature every 30 days, usually banks come in and say, oh, okay, you're getting 30 to 50 million every single month in receivables from a business, whether it's an oil trading business. You don't have to wait 30 days to get your 10 million.
Right.
I'll give you the money now. I'll give you 80% of that money right now.
Yeah.
And that way it's releasing the liquidity.
Yeah.
So in the tokenized version, I'm doing exactly that, but this time offering it to a set of investors that wouldn't necessarily have access to that commodity.
Right. So a tokenized commodity like gold would enable investors to receive income at different points in time, depending on how you program the smart contracts on the blockchain.
Yeah, can look at it like that. Or if I have a lot of assets right now, like property, and my friend has gold, and then my other friend has a coal mine, my other friend wants to build ships, right? They all have an asset, right?
Yes.
But they also need money to go and do other stuff, right? Or they want to invest in other businesses.
Right.
So let's just say on my chain, I have a coal trader,
Yeah.
I have a ship owner, I have a guy that owns casinos and hotels, I have a guy that has lots of gold. They tokenize their assets.
Yeah.
Right? And then once it's put through the whole compliance engine of that, this guy really does have all gold and this guy really does have the ships. Once all that's done, they issue a token on the value of their assets. And then the gold trader goes, okay, look, I can release some liquidity to the ship owner.
Right.
And you can now go and build some ships because I now own a piece of your ship.
Right.
Yeah. But from a commodities point of view, what we are doing is this. Now, the guys that pull out, let's just say the crude traders,
Yeah.
okay, that put the product on the ship,
Yeah.
the ship owners, so these are being financed by a bank.
Right.
The ship owners are being financed by a bank. It goes to a storage facility, which is being financed by a bank, okay? And it goes to a refinery, being financed by a bank. And it goes to a buyer, being financed, and a supplier, financed by a bank. So all these individuals
Yeah.
right, are all getting financing, right? Because they need the capability, they need some financing to execute their operations.
Right.
So what we're doing at Commoditize is this: look, I'll bring you all on board. We tokenize not all of your assets, a small portion of your assets. We tokenize each of your assets, and that way you can lend each other the money.
Right.
Without necessarily having to go to the banks. But, I'm not going to try to disrupt the relationship between the banks and the commodity houses or whatnot. Never. This is not for the big major guys. This is for the small independent traders, the family of ship owners, the family that own the refineries.
Yeah.
Because a lot of banks are shying away from financing commodity projects because they're not green. Okay? So that creates an opportunity for RWA projects, like Kommoditize, working in collaboration, say, with the likes of Chintai, who have, I think, an absolute first-class tokenizing platform, who are registered here in Singapore.
Yeah.
So for me, it gives me an opportunity to provide liquidity for a chain, not necessarily just a business.
Right.
So I take a supply chain of, say, crude or any other product. Could be ags.
Right.
It could be
agriculture.
I could go to the farmer who needs financing. Go to the guy that supplies the truck who needs financing. The store that needs financing. They all need financing. Okay, and historically they go to banks.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that you already have an asset that is enormously valuable. You're all getting X amount of receivables that are coming every single month.
Yeah.
You have an asset.
Yeah.
But you're borrowing here to complete the execution of a supply chain.
Right.
Why don't I take all the characters that perform a role in this scene and then bring them all onto the same production site and say, hey, why don't you just all invest in each other? Because effectively, it benefits every single one of you.
When you say invest in each other, does it then mean that you don't need any more external?
No, you will always need external.
Right.
You will. This is just an alternative because, well, at the moment you still need the banks.
Right.
And you will always need the banks.
Right.
But it's an alternative to obtaining financing from your supply chain as opposed to getting financing from
external sources like banks.
Yeah.
When you say they finance each other, so that would mean that if you needed financing yourself, how could you finance someone else?
Yeah, say I'm a gold trader. Because obviously there will be people on the train that are on supply. But then the gold trader comes along and goes, hey, I'm tokenizing my gold, special purpose vehicle. You get the money up front and I'm willing to invest in the ship owner or the refinery.
I get it now.
So you pull the people on chain who are part of it. They could finance each other by tokenizing some of their assets. Okay, they can tokenize their receivables. They can tokenize the actual physical asset, whether it's a ship, because to build a ship is very, very expensive. Even today, when you buy a ship, a cargo ship, 80% of it is owned by the bank. 20% of it is what you own. Right? But you imagine if you could just release 5% of that, and the profit, I mean, ships make money.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So apart from the players and the different actors, like the gold traders, the people who own the assets, the farmers, would there be any other characters that need to come in order to make this ecosystem
No,
more?
I could bring you on with all the gold that you have. You say, I want to tokenize my gold, or I want to tokenize my property empire. Just come on board, and that some people go, oh, I'd love to, own a bit of your profit. Oh, I'd love to own a bit of your profit, by releasing liquidity between each other.
Right. So even individual wealthy
on Commoditize, I'm not at that stage.
Right.
But if you look at the likes of Chintai, what they're doing with massive property funds in the US, they've already tapped and cracked that code.
Right.
So when I met them and I understood what they were doing, I was like, okay.
Right.
And then, I met, Aaron and Chris and what they were doing at BRI. They blew my mind with what they're doing. And then Chintai blew my other mind. And I was like, okay, look, I'm now starting to see a space where my sector can start working with RWA projects like these guys to self-issue tokens on our assets.
Right.
Because financing our business doesn't have to necessarily just be with a bank.
After all of these experiences,
yeah,
so varied, right?
Very varied, but
but also interconnected, right?
But calculatively executed purposely.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned across both on the investment sides as well as the entrepreneurial side?
On the investment side, really have a macro view of what's happening around you in terms of, I love Ray Dalio.
Yeah.
Right. And I love the way he wrote a book called Changing Principles and Changing World Order, something like that.
Yeah.
And he goes through what happens financially and economically when there's a new administration change or a new change in power.
Yeah.
Or what happens after a war, how money operates and how it changes hands. And that really taught me how liquidity works. You need to have a macro and a lateral view of how finance works.
Yeah.
But on the entrepreneurial side, just keep doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep trying to build something. Keep messing it up. I think the next entrepreneurial mega bomb for me is going to be Commoditize.
Okay.
So yeah, that's. So on the entrepreneurial side, just keep going. I mean, look at you. But look, it's never. One day I'm going to do it, right? It should always be day one.
True, and also be very conscious about. It's a balance for me. You have much more experience than me. It's a balance of letting things be and letting the things happen and find you, as well as being very conscious of when you are present with your craft and doing the best you can do and being the best you can be, like even for the podcast. And because if you do it half-heartedly, you don't get the full benefits of what the experience is.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can do by yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and I think I've said this to you before. You're a derivative of the 6 people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
I mean.
True. And that's something that,
it's cliche, but it's actually really true.
Yeah, that's something that, I'm discovering and also finding, right? Like, you don't just have those 6 people like this, right? You need to also learn who would that be.
Yeah. You need to identify the good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 6 friends that are really great at cutting hair, you're going to have a great haircut. But if you have 6 friends that are entrepreneurial, you'll be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But if you can't find those people, maybe you are one of them. Maybe if you can't find those people that can influence you, maybe you are the one that influences. Maybe you're the one that other people are looking at. If you can't find anyone, be sure everyone's looking at you.
That's really encouraging words. So I'm going to end with a couple of
random ones.
Random questions. Not random, but thoughtfully random.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to start. If there was one truth about commodities and energy that people would be shocked to hear about, what would that be?
I don't think a lot of people believe it's a good career move. They don't, because it's not glamorized like in movies. It's not, you got, shows like Billions, which is about hedge funds.
Yeah.
You got Succession, even like Wall Street.
Yeah.
I've never seen a movie
about commodities.
About commodities or a TV series or whatnot. That would make a good one.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to write one, you just let me know.
Yeah, right?
No, but I think if it was... Okay, look, any kind of media which glamorizes something, it becomes interesting. Yeah, it's a great place. You can have a great career. You can have a lot of money. You can learn a craft, and it's a great life.
Okay. Ooh. What is one trait you think a trader must have?
Discipline. Yeah, discipline not just in work but in their life. Not to get distracted. Yeah, and they must be present.
You said discipline in your life as well, because you know how the movies portray traders is like...
Do you know what? I have a theory, all right?
Right.
And my theory is this. In trading, there's always been a focus on crooked traders. Like with Nick Leeson and this and that. There's always like, oh, the crooked trader done this and this and this. And the one thing I've noticed is that, and it goes back to discipline, traders who are involved in sport are less likely to be corrupt.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't apply to traders as well.
Yeah, I mean,
actually applies to anything in life.
Everyone, yeah. Most people that are part of a team sport or any kind of sport.
You want to be healthy, right?
Yeah, that discipline of getting up, showing up for someone else, and showing up to do something which benefits everyone.
Yeah.
They got that mindset of, I want to do things right and I want to do things on, because sports people, they hate cheats.
Yeah.
But if you look back at 5 quite well-known traders that did things badly.
Right.
None of them did any sport.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one observation.
Next question is, what is your favorite commodity?
My favorite one? I'm biased. I'm going to say oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the Mariah Carey of commodities. It's the diva.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the diva of oil. Yeah.
And something everyone uses. And
And it's the sexiest one of them all.
Yeah. What would you say to a young person who is thinking of starting a career in commodities or trading?
Today?
Yeah.
I would not focus on that. I would focus on AI. And I would focus on understanding how to use the tools to execute the job, not focusing on how to execute the job without understanding the tool.
Right.
Because a lot of trading companies are using AI now. A lot.
Right.
So, focus on the tool to execute the job. Don't focus on the job without looking at the tool.
Interesting perspective. This has been such a incredibly insightful conversation.
Only because you made it.
Oh, thank you. So thank you so much, Eren.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you so much.
It.